Alright, welcome to Stampscapes Live on the 4th of July. Reflection card format here, half page, which is 8.5 by 5.5, with the silver reflective mirrored cardstock down below, and a piece of the glossy cardstock up on the upper portion. And we'll utilize our fountain of light here as the kind of the sky figure for the sky. All right, so just any type of sky figure you use basically the same, except the shapes of the sky figures are going to be a little bit different from one another, be it a moon or a bunch of stars or something like that, a lightning bolt. You always want to try to retain the lighter areas of those sky figures or light figures. You can have this as a, fountain, firecracker kind of fountain style firework on a ground too, or something like that. I think they used to call them fountains. Hello, Candy. Happy 4th. All right, so on the sky figures, I kind of wipe off the surrounding area just to make them able to blend in a little bit easier with the surrounding area. All right. I'm not sure how many of these I'll do. Maybe 3 up in the sky could represent kind of the finale or something like that. I'm stamping it in a dark brown, okay? Any kind of sky figure that's just made of kind of not too condensed of dots, they're going to be more delicate than something like a solid type of sky figure, the Milky Way or, Starbirth, something like that, that has a lot of super condensed dots. Okay, so what I mean by delicate, too, is these tones in here, you got to be careful. You have to stamp them out in a color that's dark enough to where when you add colors over the top of it, you're not just going to eradicate the form, because it's more delicate. You don't have a lot of solid in there, so we need to make it fairly deep and rich. You can stamp it in black too. I thought about that, but I thought, let's go for the browns in here. I don't know. Maybe I should do it in a stays on black or something like that. Something that's going to not blend or merge with other colors very much. But let's try it in the brown here. I want to try this color scheme that I really like doing. I haven't done it too much though in recent months. Okay, so here's 1, 2, and I'll go with like a third one right here. I'm kind of tilting it out like that a little bit. All right, so I'm going to stamp. I mean, the fireworks, in theory, they'd be over, a urban type of environment or suburban, houses and things like that. You're not going to have it out in nature, but, this is Stampscapes, so it's going to be in nature. I figured I'd use maybe the cabins or something like that in the foreground. And, I don't know, maybe this is somewhere in, wherever. Washington State or something like that, over a lake. But you'll have the reflections down below like that. So I'm leaving this bottom section a little bit open. All right, I do want to bring in some tones, and I'm going to stamp in my cabins right in this area. I figured I'd do one on this side, another one on this side, and we'll have this open sky up here. Okay, I think I'm going to use some additional clouds up here in the, I don't know about the end result or just a little bit further along, but I think what I'll do is I'll add in some tones in here first. And let's see how dark and rich it gets, how dark I need to stamp those clouds. That will determine that. And sometimes I just get a better, more crisp impression of the cloud if I do it after I do all that toning in there. Okay, so let's move through hopefully a nice rich color scheme here. We're going to do a couple different colors in here. We'll go with these green tones right in here, reds. I don't know, maybe we'll try like pinks and purples or something like that. Oh, just some other type of color scheme off to the side, just to try and make it fairly interesting. Something like fireworks can be a little bit tricky because they are just so dynamic. I should probably be doing this on a foil that's just inherently super brilliant and more reflective, but let's try to have a few different color schemes. I'm not going to use this many colors. I just grabbed them just because oh, they were kind of within that family of colors. Okay, let's get a good base layer coat down here first. And this will be a universal tone underneath all of these different color schemes, but can relate to each one of them somewhat, or at least blend into each one of them. So it's just a nice warm toned color scheme. Hello, Cynthia, happy 4th. All right, let's see here. There's a lot of ink on here, so I need to be careful about retaining this kind of plume of light, okay? But we do have a lot of colors to come, so we do want to get a pretty good amount of coverage in here. Does anyone have some fireworks going off around them? We used to go to, which is now my son's former high school. It's hard to believe he graduated from there. Seems like we were just taking him over there when he was like a little kid, over to the fireworks show. But our local fireworks show is right in the viewing area. Was in the football stadium. We can kind of see it. We can see it from our house. All right, let's see here. All right, so see, I'm leaving a little bit of area that's light like that, okay? But when we get into the medium tones and things like that, we want to keep these little plumes going in there. Let's see. I forgot. Candy, let's see. Are you at, is it 812 or is it 912 for you? I forgot. Hello, Megan. We've been hearing some booms. I think, oh, I know it is. The county fair has been going on, and they have a firework show every night. I don't know what time it started. I think it was it at 9 or 10? Can't remember now. Okay, let's see here. Let's go with some yellow tones here. Oh yeah, yeah, it's starting right then. 8. Is it completely dark there? Well, I guess it would have to be if you're starting to hear some. This is that time of or that night where a lot of people lose their dogs. Dogs can't stand fireworks, huh? Or a lot of them can't. I'm not sure what to tone in this area because I don't have my cabin stamped out. But I'm going to be stamping or using so much ink in here. I just think it's just better to kind of wait to add in our imagery that we want to retain the sharpness and crispness of until we get a lot of these tones down. I don't know. I guess we could stamp them out, but I'd probably want to stamp them in StazOn right now if I stamped them right now. Just that, you know, when I'm toning over it like this with this wet, you know, super wet applicator, you know, it won't smear all the imagery. So, okay, it's twilight, yeah. Well, I thought it would be a little bit early. I figured it would be yeah, a little bit of light there. Okay, so that was yellow. So this is kind of a neutral yellow. I mean, it's warm, but if you add, you know, you can go in the green direction with that one. It's like a canary yellow or something. But this one starts to become more of an orangish yellow. So that base yellow I used in these two areas for, you know, two different color schemes. Okay, I don't know. I guess I should decide now. So this one's going to be kind of violet-ish, or a little bit more violet than this one. You might get some bleed in here. I'll go with like purple, reddish orangish tones, and then we'll go with the greens over here. Okay. I just figured it'd be easier to blend in purples with, you know, violets than the greens. It would kind of go in that basic. They're not analogous colors, but it'd be a little bit closer. They really aren't like blue flamed. I don't think. Fireworks are there. Is there that color? I don't even know if there's violet ones. No, I guess there's violet ones. I'm trying to think of the most common colors. There's probably a lot more colors than I'm aware of now, too. Okay, let's see here. This transition zone right here is going to be the thing that's a little bit trickier. I guess I'll have to go with oranges into pinks right here. No, okay, that shouldn't be bad. That should be easy. You can see that kind of glow starting to come about a little bit right over here. Let's do... I was going to say, let's do some of this lower portion. I'm usually not doing so many different color schemes up in a sky area. It's usually the same color scheme up above as it, you know, is down below, or it's somewhat related, but not like three kind of, I wouldn't say distinct, because they're going to be blending in with one another, but I don't know, it's making me think here a little bit more than typically what we would really need to do most of the time. Okay, let's see. Let's go with orange. Okay, now with this orange one, I'm not going to come over here too far. Even though that other yellow had orange in it, it was still kind of more yellowish than anything. All right, something like that. And let's go with, I'm going to go to brown right now. This is one of those types of scenes where I'm going to have, like, the pads of my offhand right here are going to get really inky from holding this like this. Okay, now this brown can go into any color scheme and kind of relate to it. Okay, or, I don't know, whatever, harmonize with it. Even though it's a fairly kind of a middle tone brown. All right, so what we're doing is we're kind of going with analogous colors. You know, it's the color right next to the other one on the color wheel somewhat. So when you add analogous colors next to one another, what you create is a color glow. That's usually if you put colors right next to each other, but we're kind of layering them right over the top of another. So same type of thing in terms of you know, color, I don't know, whatever, properties and concepts. I think I still have my color, my design, 2D design class paperwork or whatever syllabus from college, where it was all kind of about color, which I didn't necessarily do great in, but I learned some things that were pretty good in that one. I don't know. I probably learned a bunch of things, but I don't know. At the time, it was tough. I redid. It's like the last couple days of the class when you're to turn in your portfolio. I redid. I don't know. It must have been half of the assignments, which we were allowed to do because you know you can refine things as much as you want. But I really redid a bunch of things. You know, because those first versions were pretty tough, or pretty brutal. All right, so see that little color glow in there? All right, let's see. I need. Apparently, I don't have. Is this it right here? Yeah. There's this other pink out there that's just a straight pink. It's a number 9 pink, which is like really, really bright. I'm sure I have a re-inker for it, but I don't have the pad anymore. It's long since, whatever, disintegrated. But, yeah, let me just go with one of these ones right here. Okay, so I need another applicator. But you don't need to buy one. You just kind of just tear another piece of there, tear that paper towel that you're using. Okay, let's try these two right here. The bubblegum pink or the rosemary. This one looks brand new. Okay, here. I think I'm looking up at my shelf. I do see a pink up there. Let me go see. Well, this one's pretty bright here. It's not going on as smooth because I don't have that re-inker, and it's like not super moist like the other one. There we go. Let me see something. Okay, here we go. This one right here. Oh, it looks brand new. It might be dry though, but This is a really bright color here. No fireworks yet. The city where I live will have show 9:30 or 10. Yeah. That was one thing about the fireworks, you know. And every time you go to a fireworks show, it's like, man, when are they starting? All right. Do you see that? Like real intensity right there. It doesn't read as pink because I'm putting it over whatever 3 other colors, including you know, those yellows in there. But let's see here. Let's just really jack up that intensity. If you ever want to get brighter with your color schemes, you can just pick up, you know, 2 or 3 Marvy re-inkers at this time if you don't have any Marvy pads. And you just use, you know, I'm dipping into a pad like that, but you can just put like a drop of the ink on there, and you can just apply it like that, you know, with whatever applicator you use. But that type of intensity is really only provided by Marvy inks. There's some other good pads out there, you know, really good ones, you know, and I use them. Mementos, Moonlight Duos, you know, all kinds of other ones, but that intensity like that, in terms of dye-based inks, that's what Marvy can provide. But let's say you only have a bunch of Stampin' Up! Or Memento inks or something like that. You use those as your base layers or whatever, and then you come into it right over the top with a Marvy ink, and that will increase the intensity of all your inks, okay? You know, because you're putting it down into the mix. So, you know, like one Marvy pad can brighten up everything, potentially. Now, there's dull Marvy colors out there, but for the most part, a lot of their inks are kind of on the brighter end of the intensity spectrum, like that right there. And then, you know, I'm using the glossy cardstock just, you know, to benefit, you know, to really utilize that intensity, super intense end of the spectrum there. All right, so here, this pink's really coming. You see that right there? It's getting even more intense. I was kind of laying it down, I thought it was pretty dense, but I guess it was a little bit sparse because it does get a little bit denser and more intense there too. Oh, yeah, you're watching the fireworks show right here, Jeannie. And the difference between my fireworks show and the other ones is the dogs don't go running. Or busting down the gate, you know, to get, you know, to escape. All right, see that kind of glow, and then we're retaining the lighter areas in there. All right, so let's see. I'm tempted to keep developing that area, especially while it's a little bit moist, but I should probably go into this one at this point in time, just so I don't get so far ahead with these other colors. I could probably balance it out okay, but I think I should bring this one up a little bit more before I get into some other tones over here. After all the tornadoes here recently and all the damages still waiting to be cleared, fireworks isn't advised in the city. When was the last one, Candy, the tornado? Yeah, the volcano stamp, Genie. That's what I usually, that's what this one is intended for. This stamp right here came out with the tropical series. It's probably back in 96, maybe? 96, yeah, I think 96. Whew, man. All of you were still in, you know, grade school at the time, huh? Okay, so a little bit of green. I'm doing it with a very light green right now. Okay, but see, here's that analogous color right there. Looks like my camera's having a hard time focusing. Or, not focusing, but exposing. Maybe that's a good sign. With, you know, fireworks going off on my page. Okay, now I'm kind of doing this type of thing, and I'm coming into that plume like that with this type of kind of arc like that. I'm trying to, you know, follow along with the kind of the movement of this. So if I'm blending into this area at this point in time, not really with the first color because it's so light, but I'm going to come in like this and like this. And if it was over here, kind of like that and like that. Don't worry if it's kind of too clunky though, because we're going to use paint pens on here. And if you get kind of this mark in there that's not tapering off really nicely, the paint pens take care of it anyway, so. But you just try to get it as smooth as you can right here. So this is that little transition zone going from between green and this orangish tone, which is kind of brown. So that's why we use that brown as a base right in there. God, my camera's going nuts. All right, so right over here, we'll do a little bit more of a greenish tinge right down here, where that cabin's going to go. I'll have to do a lot of refinements with my coloring after I stamp out my imagery in here. I might change my mind too, I'm not sure. Might have to just be like the Lakeside Cove or something like that. You know, something that's going to just cover up everything with a solid imagery, as opposed to like the cabins have a lot of open areas on them. The lightning outshines the fireworks. Oh, yeah. The best lightning I ever saw coming from California, because there's always stuff in the way, was when I arrived one night in Missouri, and I was traveling from St. Louis to Columbia, and it was just storming that night when I was driving out there in the rental car, and just seeing that lightning on that flat landscape, you know, was really amazing. It was like, wow, you know, is that what it looks like, you know, without a bunch of things in the way? You know, going horizontal, and every single arm visible. It was so cool. I almost remember more about that lightning and the drive than I do about the classes out there. Although that was a great trip, though, just general with all the classes. I did this trip from St. Louis to Columbia, and then I went to St. Genevieve, if anyone knows that area, and then back up to St. Charles, kind of, you know, right near St. Louis. All right, a little bit of a deeper red right here. Okay. The question is how far do I extend this one over? You know, when you get like to this color of red, you don't want to go over there too far, I don't think. But I love seeing like this type of tone in here at this point in time. You know, the first couple colors, it's just kind of establishing, you know, what you might be keeping light and, you know, where your deeper shadows are going to be. But the real richness of everything comes with, I would say it starts up maybe around the 4th color or something like that. Hello, Sharita. Happy 4th. I hope you're having fun. Lighting off all your fireworks. We used to love getting fireworks every year. They weren't legal in my city, my little small town, but the town right next, city right next, near us, allowed it, so we'd go and buy fireworks. Just small ones, you know. What do they call those? Snakes and those flowers. Sparklers, of course, you know. Nothing huge. And then if maybe my parents felt like splurging on something one year, I think we got a couple of those like fountains. What was it? Piccolo Pete's. I don't know. What were some other ones? I can't remember those standard ones. I think there were smoke bombs or something like that. All right. A little bit of a transition zone in there. That's going to be handled by a lot of this. Looks like black, but this one's really dark brown right here. 7 tornadoes. Wow. In June. Okay, let's see. All right, Candy, take care there. All right, let's get into some brighter tints. Now, I already went pretty dark over here. Well, I guess it's not that dark. But this looks a little bit lighter than this right here, but let's just go and use this for toning right here. This is another one of those really great Marvy colors. They probably still have these in stock too at places like maybe like Marco's, or the Uchida website too has a lot of the Marvy inks still in stock. They're out of the kind of the more popular colors, like black was probably the first one that they ran out of, and some of the lighter blues, like a light blue and salvia blue, but I don't know, the blue tones. And then I don't know, there's a lot of those other colors left, but this one's a really great one if you want to really add a lot of pop to grassy scenes. It's a little bit too bright as it is, but if you layer it over, you know, other colors or with other colors, you'll benefit from the richness of it and the brightness of it, and it'll really make those green areas really pop. See that intensity right in there? that's the same. This is the same type of thing that I would do, in grassy terrains if I'm doing, glossy cardstock, layered dye-based ink technique. But a lot of times it's too hot of a color, so you mix in the brown or something like that into it. All right, let's see. One of the things about bright colors too is you can always take a bright color and you can make it dull by, if you have the re-inker for it, you just water it down with water, or you just do a very light impression of it or application of it, and you can go from intense to dull. But you can't necessarily take a dull color and make it more intense, with just something like water or something like that. So just think about that, in terms of all of your different inks and things like that. You can make dark ones lighter and bright ones duller, okay, when you're thinking about different colors to use on your pieces. So when you look at something like this, you're not necessarily thinking probably dull green or dull pastel green, but you can do that with any of these types of colors, okay? But again, you just can't go the opposite way. You can, that's where you just add in other colors, though. If you want to go darker, then you just add in darker green. But you can go lighter, duller, but not brighter, darker. All right, so here's some more of that green up there, like that. This is the color scheme right here that I often use for Northern Lights too, except I just go more extreme with more of this one right here. All right, ooh, that one is really dark right here. This is the bottle green. As I was mentioning in a recent video, maybe it was this one right here, that bottle green really... Oh, by the way, if anyone... I know a lot of you watch this one being created right here, but if you notice now, you don't see all those alcohol streaks in my trees because this has been spray sealed with the Krylon spray fixative. So everything is of a uniform texture in terms of nothing kind of obtrusive and undesirable in terms of streaks of other types of alcohol inks on these, especially in the tree trunks. All right, it's looking like that. Let's move over to some other tones right up here. Let's go with the magenta. I hardly ever use magenta. This is another one of those colors that is super, super bright and penetrates. I don't know, it's just... Sorry about my... oh, I know, it's just this glare from the my glossy cardstock is really kind of glaring back into this. Let me see if I can zoom out and it stops doing that so much. Yeah, that is really, really intense right there, especially in conjunction with that pink underneath it, that Marvy pink. I don't use, like I said, I don't use magenta too often because it's usually, if I'm doing it, it's usually in some super, super deep, rich, like sunset scheme. It doesn't necessarily look magenta up there because it's over the top of reds and oranges and tans and all that, but it just really creates a super intense color. All right, let's move into brown. I'm looking to see if I have a dark brown. Yeah, wait. Yeah, dark brown re-inker. I think I should use some of this, because this is really saturated up there, so I'm probably going to need a pretty decent amount of ink on my applicator here in order for it to just transfer on there. I'll start over. Ooh, that is really, really dark. Wipe it off a little bit to get it lighter and duller. Well, it gives it kind of that nice, whatever, patina. I'm having to do it like this. There's so much ink on this. I go like that, then I'm rolling this up and I'm just kind of spreading it around with a dry area of the paper towel. But it makes it go pretty fast like that, though. So this will kind of mellow out some of this intensity up there. See, it looks a little bit more kind of smoky and aged looking. But it won't get rid of the intensity. Well, it will get rid of the intensity a little bit, but I'll still have some of this intensity because I'm not going to cover all of it up with this brown tone here. But this brown tone will kind of unify this area a lot more. This brown is really transferring really easily. I didn't think it would, because it's not one of those that it seems like the density isn't quite as thin as some of the other ones. But maybe, I don't know, maybe it's because I just have so much ink on it. All right, but that is that right there. Kind of a trio of colors right there. Let me see what this is going to be looking like. Maybe it might be better if I do this bottom part on gold cardstock instead. I don't know. But let's keep that at that for now. I need to get kind of my bearings on how this is going to look with some imagery stamped out here. So I think we should stamp out the imagery here. Hello, Caroline. Happy 4th. All right. Let's see. Let's go with the night cabins. If I'm going to stamp those out in here. I think so. I wonder if I should stamp these in... Maybe I should stamp them in Stays On. I'm usually stamping Stays On kind of specialty papers. But if I want to color this... Oh, wait a minute. But if I want to use alcohol pens, then I can't stamp this in Stays On because alcohol will dissolve the solvent ink. But I don't know, I guess there's a trade-off here because I needed to do a little bit of extra kind of coloring with the dye-based inks too, and the dye-based inks wouldn't mix with the solvent inks, so let's just go with the dye-based inks here because I think I want to use the you know, my alcohol pens. I don't know. I don't know. Either way, I think that there'll be a trade-off, you know, one way or the other. It's a good thing it's a live stream because I have to be a lot more decisive, you know, and just, okay, let's just go with this, you know. Okay, let's see. This area down here isn't too moist, but I'm going to stand up and apply a little bit more pressure. Or just even pressure. You don't have to press down harder, but kind of a consistent pressure, I guess I should say. Just because this paper on the surface is starting to get a little bit, you know, like close to super saturation probably. I mean, it's dry. I mean, if I touch this right here, it's not like sopping wet or something like that, but, you know, it's probably a little bit moist. So just allow your ink to transfer onto the surface, you know, long enough. Okay, something like that. And there's fireworks in the sky, so we're going to put this in a little bit more of a populated area, probably, for them to have fireworks. So I'm going to put this other cabin right over here, okay? Now, normally, if this was the only scene that I was doing up here and it wasn't a reflection card, I would stamp these higher so I'd have some water down here and everything like that. But the water is going to be down here, all right? So that's what that whole bottom portion represents. It's like the where the water line starts. I mean, it can go up a little bit higher, but for the most part, that's your water's kind of edge right there. All right, probably about 80% of it I'm stamping off, you know, off the edge of the card a little bit. And well, that's about 1 inch, I guess. Okay, there we go. That one's coming right. Looks like it's coming right out of that top of that tree, right there. Okay. All right, now we need that background in there now, in between. So this is where, you know, I had to get my bearings a little bit because it's hard to tell where everything is going to be positioned and where the cabins are in the light when you're doing all that background first, because that background, of course, is going to be showing right through all of the open imagery in here. So, you know, you just kind of play it back and forth a little bit. You stamp the background, then stamp some of the foreground imagery, then go back with a little bit more coloring, and after that, after you see where everything is going to go, you know, and just play it accordingly. All right, so this is a background. I've been using this Pine Island lately quite a bit, which has been working really well. Sometimes I forget about some images, and I don't use them for a while. It's like you kind of rediscover them. Like I haven't used like the Fountain of Light in a long time. Let me do something right here. Let me wipe off a little bit of this bottom portion right here. We'll give it a little bit of a kind of rocks in the mist type of feel in the, I don't know, whatever the end result, maybe. Like this. And then we have this little open space right in here, okay? And that's where we really need to stamp our imagery first. Kind of, I don't know. I'm going to put a cloud right in the background right there. I guess it could have been stamped in there already. But I'm trying to decide on what color to do this one. And I think I will do it in the brown right here, okay? An equivalent would be something like a walnut stain or something like that, the Distress Ink color, which is really good. All right, this cloud right here, we're going to be blending it up into these plumes of light, which are very delicate, so I don't want this harsh edge of the cloud, so where this is going up into those, I'm going to wipe off a lot of the ink. A pretty good, portion of it. I'm scrubbing on here pretty good, like that. And then I'm kind of dabbing off a little bit around here too. So I'm wiping off a pretty good amount right on the top portion, okay, right up there. And then you take off a little bit underneath it. Okay, now this is I'm not stamping it out in this color of black either. I'm stamping it out in brown, so it should be even lighter. I took off quite a bit, this bottom portion too, so I don't think I even need to mask this off. And let's just go right up here. This looks like the finale of a fireworks show anyway, and there's going to be a lot of kind of like smoke in the air already. Like that. So see, I don't get this harsh edge of the cloud because it's been wiped off, The darker you stamp it out, the potentially darker and harsher the edge, right? I mean, you could stamp it out in black. Like, I'll need to stamp it in something pretty dark up here, which I'm going to do. Okay, and I'll come over here, like so. Go like that. Okay, and then see how the lights are above these clouds, but then if I put this cloud up here, the lighting is below it, so I'm going to stamp it this way, so these clouds are kind of bottom lit up here. It already has a little bit of texture up there, so I probably don't need to do this, but I think it'll look pretty cool, and it gives the sky a little bit of extra depth by having this up here. Here, I'll show you. I'll go with a couple different colors up here. Let's just go with the dark brown. I could take my time and do like a green over here and a red over here, but I think I'm just gonna stick with the color that I stamped out my fountain of light in initially, with the dark brown right here. Oh my god, I forgot this dark brown is like super, super juicy now, so that's like sopping wet. I used way too much ink on that pad, I think. Here, let me apply a little bit less ink here. All right, same concept. This area right down here is going to be blending into that, so I'm going to wipe off this. It might even be good for me to stamp this off once before, but let's just go for it here. So I took off a lot of the ink up here, most, and then down here I'm taking off a little bit less, so it's going from wet to dry, so it should stamp out dark to light, and stamp out dark to light because the light is down here and this is darker up here. So let's go in here a little bit. This is pretty dark over here. I think I'm going to have to put black right in there. All right, so you see that right there? So it kind of adds a little bit more depth to that sky area like that. Let's try this. Let's go, okay, yeah, let's go ahead and try this. I'm going to try for a second impression right here, and maybe it's a little bit lighter looking. If it stamps at too light, you can just stamp it, you know, re-ink it and stamp it again. But I think there's going to be ink that's still on here. Yeah, there we go. So see that like that? So it's a little bit more, there's a little bit more depth up in that sky area, if not a lot more. All right, see that right in there? And let's go for another one right over here. Sometimes I take this and I'm kind of just wiping it almost on the stamp here as opposed to tapping, and that gives me a little bit less of a application of ink on there because it's almost like you're kind of wiping off the excess as you're applying it. All right. Alright, so there's that top portion right there. It's like a jewel tone sky. We'll bring in some shadow work to that lower section in there too. But here's the lights over the lake. I think that'd be a good title for this one. Again, I'm not so sure if that's if this might look better with gold down here instead of silver. I'll play around with it after the video here, but all right, let's add in some shadow work down here, and we'll try to like that rock in there. You know, there's nothing, there's no tone or anything on that rock at all. So let's add in some different colors in there, and let's add some colors into these trees as well, these kind of more deciduous ones. Or not deciduous, I don't know. There's these types of pine trees that kind of, they turn colors in the fall. All right, so here's some greens, and then here's some oranges. We'll use some of those on these ones right in here. And then we'll hit that rock and some of these rocks down here with a little bit of maybe some brown tones or gray. Maybe some gray. Something like this. All right. Hey, Bill, how are you? How goes it? Hello in Montana, Sherry. This is that lake, by the way, right up there, and it's in Montana. Larch, is that it, Mark? Yeah, I don't know. I saw these photographs of those trees, and I was thinking, all right, those are pine trees, but you know, but they were like reds and yellows. I'm talking about photographs of them. I thought that looks so cool looking. And then I don't know. I don't know, I was reading something later, and it was like, oh, they're this type of tree, or it might have been that. And it's like, oh, okay. I didn't know, there was like these pine trees that turned like those colors, like, seasonally. Okay, now these rocks right down in here, I am toning them in, but I'm leaving kind of the top sides of them kind of light like that so that it looks more like volumes like that. I don't know, you have some large trees around you, Mark? Those would be really cool to see. We don't have any, I don't think there's any of those types of things in California or in the West, or like, Pacific Northwest. I think the trees that I was referencing when I drew these designs right here, I think it was in Switzerland or something. Okay, here's a yellow right here. That's a little bit too yellowy on those rocks, so I'm going to knock that back here. You can always edit, what you've added in, with the alcohol pens. You can kind of blend them together a little bit, or a lot. But those photographs, though, on those trees, I thought it was so cool because there was these, there's like, in forests, there's often, different types of trees living in this, an area, a given area. It's not, what do you call it? It's not monoculture. So, yeah, just these trees standing up against, dark green ones or something like that was really cool. All right, let's add in some colors onto some of these right here. We'll go with some multiple tones, maybe. Oh, not to match the sky, but to, I don't know, kind of harmonize with it a little bit at least. All right, so I'm just kind of dabbling around. I'm leaving some of these areas. This is a pretty dark green right here. By the way, I typically work with some sort of some media, like laying down all those tones in the background. That was light to dark, okay? But sometimes with something like this, sometimes I go dark to light, or I go light to dark, and then I go back to light again, It just depends on the situation. Google Larch Madness, Montana and Alberta. That sounds like the type of place they'd be. Wait, I don't know. Where, Sherry's, Sherry, you see larch trees around you? Or where, on your weekend drives? That must be it then. Yeah, thanks, Mark. I'm gonna check that out. I want to see more larch. I want to see more larch madness. Yeah, there was some of those trees were like, I don't know, they were like crimson red. Almost seemed like. You like the magenta, huh, Sharita? It really adds a kind of a nice kind of bright pop to the that intensity up there, doesn't it? Look at that crimson up there, huh? So that's one of those things. Okay, so when you're working with transparent media, not all transparent media, like sometimes if we're working with like alcohol inks, layering one alcohol ink over the other, it kind of puts the the colors underneath, the other layers underneath, kind of back into solution. So you're kind of like physically mixing colors together, you know, by dissolving the ones that have already been applied, and you know, it's putting it back into solution. So it's not like layer over layer over layer, okay? But like things like oil paints, you know, which I don't know. Does anyone oil paint? I don't oil paint anymore. It's too much a pain in the you know what to do that at home, because you have to have like a rag can and stuff like that. But like dye-based inks, you know, something that you can lay down and then layer over with other colors, okay, you can get you can achieve kind of a deeper, richer intensity like that, okay, by doing multiple layers over one another. All right, so you can see the difference between on here. This is that cloud over, you know, maybe 2 or 3 of those lighter tones of ink down there. And this one up here, I don't know, what was 6 or 7 layers of color. You can't see the other ones in terms of what colors those were, but they do influence quite a bit the end result, having that up there. And that's how you get those color glows like that. So, and it's easier to put together a color scheme too, for this. Now, if we were doing this on a semi-gloss cardstock or a matte, the matte isn't going to get that intense because you're going to be losing a lot more of the ink into the pulp of the paper. It absorbs a lot more than glossy. Glossy, it's not all on the surface, it's absorbing too. But you can really build up those colors. So, so a lot of times when people look at these pieces, the end result, if they, you know what I mean, if they're not layering their colors like this in this type of process right here, a lot of times people will think that that's one color right there. So when they go to, maybe that is, you know, maybe that's the magenta that I've used up there, okay? But if they just go with only that magenta right there, it might look really, really dull in relation to that one. Let's take a look and let's see that magenta just on a piece of paper right here, like this. Ooh, it's okay. My magenta is completely crumbling. Maybe we can't show you. I can't move it. I can kind of dab into it. It's like dabbing into, like, I don't know, a crumbling. Well, it's a crumbling piece of sponge is what it is. But oh, here. Let's just take a look here, because this is a good point right here, which is just basically to take your time and to, you know, work through some different layers of color. So this is a full saturation of that magenta right here. It's a beautiful, rich tone, but it doesn't have that glow like that, okay? And that's just because those colors underneath, even though they're not readily visible or obviously visible in terms of what they were in their pure form, they're influencing what you see in the end result. So you know, just lay down. You know, it doesn't have to be 5 colors that you do either, but if you lay down like 2 or 3 colors underneath kind of your main color within your color scheme, you can achieve more of a glow like that. Now, as I was saying, if you were working on like a semi-gloss or something like that, you can also incorporate, you know, other types of media in there. You can do some colored pencils. And colored pencils are really soft, but if they're over the top of other types of media, you know, you can get a pretty good looking glow, you know, than not having it in there, you know, in terms of you know, multiple layers like that. So I don't know if that made sense at all. So in other words, you know, You just kind of put together like a little color scheme like that and just lay them down in the order from light to dark like that. So this, in other words, will have a more rich looking end result than, say, something like, this right here. This should, should look rich too, but if you kind of throw those intermediate colors in there, it makes it does two things. It just makes the blending process so much easier because you're not jumping ahead to some super rich, darker tones than the one you were previously working on. So it's just like things kind of just develop nice and incrementally, but they also get much more rich looking in this media combination, dye-based inks on your cardstock, or layered dye-based inks specifically. So in my first, I've mentioned this many times, but in my first workshops, Stampscaping 101, when I used to teach in-person classes a lot more, I just had people, people were uncertain about color schemes or how to kind of devise their color schemes, like, like a sunset or something like that, or if you're doing kind of those greenish tinge aurora borealises, I just had them take their pads in the color schemes they were thinking about and just line them up, from, light to dark, and just apply them accordingly, Or if they were doing a bluish colored scheme, just light blue, medium blue, dark blue. And then, there's other things, but that's definitely the basics, and, there's not too much more than that. I'm not applying like color theory and stuff like that to my pieces. Like, I don't know, what is it, like triadic color schemes, and you know what I mean, stuff like that. I don't get into that like type of thing at all. All right, so adding in some additional tones right in here on my trees. I'm making them way darker than what I think is kind of ideal, but I plan on blending them in a little bit more and using my paint pens on them. Okay, let's see. Let's go with some of these orangish tinges in these trees right here. Got to use a little bit more color if it's gonna qualify for Larch Madness. I don't know what I have more fun doing. These kind of deciduous trees and kind of, or not deciduous. I don't know about these large ones. I don't know. Is it deciduous? I don't know. They change colors. Are they dropping their needles too? Or do they retain them? All right. Where did that gray go again? Let's see. I'm going to bring in some of this gray on the sides of these houses. It's already kind of grayscale, but let's go into some of these rocks down below too. Try to move this along a little bit faster here. I know this is like supposed to be like a wooden cabin, but I want to use like a dark, brown on the side of the cabins right here. So see, I made the sides of these cabins a little bit darker, and those windows stand out a little bit more by contrast. I'm kind of debating on whether or not to color those windows in with a little bit of tone, or if I should just leave them. And okay, maybe I did make those trees a little bit too light or dark. I'm going to go in with my blender pen like this, and we'll remove a little bit of that tone off some of these. So the blender pen is just actually, it's like putting the ink, my alcohol ink, back into solution and removing some of it. You can't remove too much, but you can remove a little bit of it. All right. That, let's take a look. Okay. Ooh, that was pretty colorful. See, one thing about the reflection cards, you do all this work up here, and you get another mirrored impression of it. So it's like you get double your work. You know, like no effort, just adding in the mirrored stock below like that. Okay, so let's go in with our paint pens. I mean, use a few more. All right, I need to clear out some inks out of my way. I have a gazillion ink pads in front of me. All right, let's see. We're using kind of this color scheme up top here. Let's go with this right here, I think. Okay. Hello, Jill. Thanks so much. Happy 4th. Working on scenes using old photos and your stamps. Awesome. Now, what do you mean, Jill? Are you doing some photo stamping there? Or are you referencing photos to do some scenes? You make it look so easy. Just use an easy technique, Jill. Don't make it complicated. There are some things that you can do that can take kind of an easier type of process and complicate it. Mainly, it's really know your media combinations, and it's not just the media combinations. Sometimes it's like, you know, if you're using too much ink or not enough ink with certain types of surfaces, and that makes a big difference. But on something like this, it's all in the base layer coating that makes all the difference in terms of the amount of saturation, but also ease of application. You know, so really kind of watch that and just kind of know your media. And it's, you know, like I said, it's the most important thing is the combination of media, but also how much media you're using. And it's not like there's a small tolerance or something like that. It's kind of more than the extremes. Sometimes, you know, I was watching some people stamping, and on if anyone, you have not watched Stamp Wars on the Nancy Stamps channel, you gotta check that out. It's awesome. But I was watching that, and it occurred to me, like, I think most people use a lot more ink than I do. You know, they really ink things up. So sometimes, like, if I stamp something like this out, it might be too juicy. So when I'm going over it and coloring, it's no problem. But if you're using like a super wet pad or something like that, and you're using some of these techniques, it could smear the imagery a lot more. Okay, so let's go in and let's bring, that area is pretty lively, but it can really use some extra kind of, whatever, explosive, like little touches in terms of, I don't know, whatever, shimmer, I guess. Okay, so this one right here is a pinkish, you know, color scheme. So I'm going to bring in some pinks into it. Here's the thing with this one right here. So we're talking about kind of like ease of application. So if I add in some of these dots and it's like really too heavy, it can look a little bit heavy-handed. Now there's certain things I can do. If it does look like that, I can go back in and after these dots are laid in, I can tone these dots down. I can color them in a little bit by going over them, you know, with some additional colors so that there's not so much contrast between what I lay down. But the big thing right here is just kind of, as I'm adding these down like this, or adding them in, whatever, like this. See, I start in this area right in here where it's almost like an invisible application because this color is the same color as what I'm adding it into, okay? And then what you do is you come out from there into the darker area, and you'll see me do this with white. I'll add in some white pigment ink, and then I'll dab it in this area where it's barely visible, and then I'll creep it into that other area like that. So everything's kind of just, you want to kind of, if you want to go for like ease of application, what you're doing is, imagine if there's like a volume knob or something like that. So you have it on a really low volume, and then you're just slowly increasing it. So this would be like visual volume. You just make everything a little bit darker. When you're darkening something, you just make it a little bit darker at a time. Or, in this case, see that lightness right there? I'm making it a little bit lighter at a time, so I'm starting it in the lighter area like this, but then I come up into here, and each one of these little dots is really standing out because that area up there is a lot darker than this. But I start it down here where it's almost like invisible, okay? So none of it's like precarious because I'm just doing, like in this case, it's a little bit dot at a time. When I was adding in tone, it's just going a little bit darker at any given time. I mean, you could, when you get comfortable with a given thing, you can go a lot faster. I tend to keep kind of the same kind of methodology, though, because I just find it faster. Kind of methodical has, kind of a... It seems like it would be take longer to do, but if I don't have to undo things, you know what I mean, then it's inevitably it's kind of faster in the long run. All right, so see this, I'm kind of carrying these little plumes out here. So one of the things I was mentioning is, if you tone these out too much, oh my God, I lost all my light in here. When you get to these pens, you can just kind of add a lot of that back in. Okay, so that's just some pink right there. Let's add in some of this green. This green should look pretty dynamic right out in this area right in here. I'm going to splatter paint this all too after this kind of pen work in here. So there's going to be some additional texture. See, I'm kind of trying to keep it with these little plumes coming out like this. So there's a little bit heavier concentration right here where it's kind of invisible. And as I move out here, I'm kind of spacing those little dots a little bit farther apart. Like that. So see, it kind of, like that light kind of emanates from that, whatever that source right in there. So just kind of spread it out. Check it out, check and see what you're doing. It kind of, in a scene like this is like a unusual scene where you're usually not doing fireworks, It's usually like a sun or a moonlight or, something like that. But, just kind of check out what you're doing from whatever, like arm's distance, just to get the gist of, what you're adding in is how it's affecting the overall. Okay. Right. Oh, okay, so on these trees down here too, the green trees, we can add in some little highlights down in there. Be kind of cool if some of you are watching this while hearing some fireworks going off in your whatever local area, community or whatever. So for us here in San Diego, SeaWorld is about, I don't know, it's like 20 miles away, I would say. And by way the crow flies, I think. Maybe a little bit less, I'm not sure if it's just a straight line, but we can hear the fireworks during the summertime at night. I don't know if they shoot them off like every day though anymore. It might be like on weekends or something like that. All right, so see these little highlights on the sides of the trees like that. It's kind of it's where you kind of add in that kind of the glistening kind of touch onto your pieces. And this is where, see this right in here? My coloring right in here? It's really muddy, right? So if I was just doing only alcohol ink coloring, you know, I'd probably be a little bit more careful about it, but I'm not really good at blending like alcohol inks. You know, if anyone's done those, if anyone's like a Copic marker user, you know, they're going to be way better at, you know, basically everything that has to do with coloring than I am. But I kind of make up for that by adding in this extra texturing in there. And that kind, you know what I mean? That kind of brings everything together for me. And then usually I use a little bit of a white pigment ink over things, and that really saves me. And it, you know what I mean? The end result looks pretty good. But I always try to point out, you know, like my shortcomings during the process right here, because it can often look kind of muddy in many areas, or overworked or badly applied. But you know, a lot of times it doesn't matter in the end result, because I just kind of, you know, if I don't like something in a certain area, I just kind of bury it under something else, you know, some extra texturing or something, or you know, other media. So I'm really good at hiding things, which is easy to do in landscape stamping. Again, you know, one of the, you know, as I always mention, one of those jokes on you know, with scenic stampers is, if you don't, you know, if you got something that you don't like in a certain area, and then you just stamp it, you know, like a branch over it. All right, so these trees are starting to come to life a little bit. A little bit of texturing up there, not enough. I'll go with a little bit more here. Let's go with the yellow for this more orangish one right in here. Yeah, we don't have any large trees around us, huh, Cecile? And out here in the west. Glad you like the card, Sherry. Let's see. It's a little tricky using photos because it's slick. Yeah. Oh. So what photos are you stamping on, Jill? What type of paper? Are you stamping on photo paper? Or, like, I got some, I ordered some from Shutterfly. And those things are printed on, like, printing paper. So they're printed on, like, glossy cardstock, and then they're sealed off. So everything I knew about photo stamping or stamping on photo paper, I couldn't use with my latest, you know, I got like 100 prints because it was that Shutterfly, you know, whatever free print thing. You just pay like $20 for shipping. You know, on like a $5, you know, shipping, you know, $5 worth of shipping, really, but they charged 20. But it was still, you know, it was still a good deal. But yeah. So I was, you know, speaking of like stamping on slick papers, it was really slick. So I had to use more of my stays on ink for my impressions on my latest photos. I mean, if you're, you know, if I'm printing it out like one or two pieces at prints at home on an inkjet printer, no big deal, but I like to get a bunch of them all at once. I don't want to use like all my printer inks. So yeah, but yeah. So if you're stamping on certain types of papers, yeah, it's going to be slick. So that's like stamping, for me, stamping on like these foils like this. You know, I have to kind of get my feel for it. And it was like what I was mentioning before. You know, if I have like a really juicy ink pad, it makes it a little bit even more tricky because you have so much ink in between your stamp and the surface. And if it's a non-porous surface, it's easy for, you know, me to skew that stamp while making the impression. But you know, you got to get a feel of it a little bit, you know. And then if you haven't done it for a while, you got to have to reestablish that. It's like get that touch again. Otherwise, you know, sometimes I'm doing like a foreground. It's like, oh, I think I moved it. You know, like I felt it after I stamped it down. It like moved a little bit. So I'm using so many different types of surface surface media combinations these days. Sometimes I don't get back to a certain medium for a while, and it's like, oh, I forgot about that. You know, that feel when stamping something out and down. I have to be a little bit more decisive, you know, when placing a stamp, and then not pressing too hard. You know, stuff like that. See, when I talk about all these types of things, and then I do that on this scene right here, it's like I'm thinking to myself, okay, now I just got done talking about, you know, kind of pressure and ink quantity and decisiveness, and then it's like, oh, I skewed it. And I still do it. You know, sometimes I'm thinking about it too much, maybe. Okay, so let's add in some more of these plumes right here. This is a lighter color than this pink. So see, it stands out more, right? But see, I've kind of laid down, you know, some of these touches in here, so I'm kind of getting familiarized with the lighting in this, you know, this scene a little bit more. So I'm going in with a lighter pen, the one that stands out more. It's in terms of contrast. So again, I started off with a darker one, but now I'm going lighter, and I feel, you know, you kind of acclimate a little bit, I guess, you know. Well, that's what I mean. Just, you know, kind of take it nice and slow, and or, you know, it doesn't have to be slow, but maybe the word is methodically. And there's just, I don't know, I don't have like I don't run into as many kind of unintentional, undesirable marks doing it this way. Which I do get still, though, you know. But I just, you know, I mean, I still, when I get those kind of undesirable things, I just kind of bury it after with whatever, some sort of technique. By the way, with this paint pen too, on the glossy cardstock, if you ever lay down some of these things, like these ones are like dry by now, I can still just kind of take a paper towel and just kind of wipe them right off. I mean, they're not like fragile or anything like that, but if I took a paper towel and or like a cotton ball, and I buff that a little bit, that would come right off without any problem. What happens is, I always mention this, but when we start doing this type of thing, sometimes we're concentrating. We're not looking at the overall, and then we add down like 1,000 dots, and then we hold it out at arm's distance. Like, oh my God, you know, I went like way too far. You know, it's like crawling with you know, texture or something like that. But like I said, you can add tone to them, you know, make them a little bit darker, the dots, so they don't stand out as much, or you can buff them off or anything like that. So it's really, it's a lot more user friendly than what might, you know, seem. All right, so there we go with that. Okay, it's kind of like coming alive a little bit more. It's a little bit more festive, huh, with those little dots in there like that. Let's get a little bit more highlighting in here. Some of these trees in here have these kind of bare trunks like that. That's kind of dark over here, so I don't know. This one might be the one to use on here. So I'm gonna see if I can lighten up some of these like pillars here, but I'll get the side of that tree a little bit more like that. Maybe we'll go up like this. Continue that trunk up there slightly. See how I turned this card upside down? Because it's easier for me to do this check mark like that than for me to go like this. And, go like this. That's kind of awkward. So I flip them around like this because this is your natural movement for like a check mark. And that's what I'm kind of doing on some of these little delicate little, or I don't know, not delicate, but thin little things right here. There's a trunk right there. I'm just kind of adding a trunk where one doesn't exist because I like that kind of that structure kind of in the middle of the tree. Like that right in there. See, it looks a little bit more dimensional, those trees do, I think, when you do something like that too. And I'll just, maybe that's too much, where I'll just add a little bit of shimmer around those trunks. It's like clusters of leaves on that tree now. All right, so we got something like that. Let's put some of that little shimmer down in this water too. I'll kind of cluster it a little bit more in the center like that, and then kind of dissipate on the edges like that. Okay. It's a little bit crawling, but then the white pigment ink will take care of a lot of that. All right, so we have that, like so. All right. Pretty colorful piece. It's one of the more colorful ones I think I've done in a while at least. All right. This is a lot of alcohol ink right in here. I'm going to use some of this Tiny Rocks Small. It's just a little texture stamp like that. Now, the StazOn is what's going to be needed to color or to ink this type of foil like this, and for it to dry and adhere to it. Okay, so I just want to add in a little bit of this texturing up here first. All right, because it kind of gives it a little bit of a shallow water kind of look right back in there. Glad you like it, Megan. Oh, Caroline can hear fireworks. If you guys need to go see the fireworks, completely understand. Just put me on your phone and take me with you. All right, let's add in some textures, which will be like the shoreline or the water around the cabins. I think I didn't always do this with the Tiny Rocks, but I'm like doing it all the time now because I think it looks better. From a textural standpoint. All right. Let's see what this looks right here. Okay, so this is, let me see if I can show you. So you see those rocks down below, right in there? It's all glary. No, it's hard to, can't see it at all like that. Okay, let me see if I can show you right here. Okay, but look right down here in the shoreline. You see those rocks right in there. Okay, so it gives a little bit more dimension that way, rather than just having it all kind of mirrored like that. All right. All right, now let's add in our foreground elements right down here, and I think we should be done. I don't think I need to color in those windows. I could, and it would make them a little bit lighter, but they stand out enough to me, and they're already kind of in a light, warm tone, which I kind of like on the, as far as like interior structure illumination. So all right, here comes that that slick impression stamping right here. Let's see if I can get it here, Jill. All right, if I skew one of these right here, you know, and it's like a stamp amount, oh, you know, it got kind of blurry. I'm doing that on purpose so that, you know, Jill will have something to relate to. It's like, oh, he does it too. Or it happens to him too. Let me go with a little bit more ink here. My StazOn pad's kind of dry. So here goes that thing with the juicy pad on, you know, juicy ink on your stamp and stamping it onto a non-porous surface. Can't tell if this is inked up or not. I got this one little spot like that. You ever do that? You ink up your stamp and you can't tell if it's inked up or not. It seems like there's no ink on there. All right, nice and decisive like that. It's sometimes it's more like when I'm using like Brilliant. Sometimes I stamp onto the surface with Brilliant's pigment ink, and that's a thicker ink. And that's the one, especially when I'm stamping like small images too, like little people. That's when I tend to. It's, you know, you want to get the right amount of pressure, because if you press too hard, the ink is squeezing out from underneath the stamp. But the StazOn dries pretty fast, so I usually don't have that problem. But I don't know, sometimes. Yeah, so right in there, I think I need to clean that area off. It didn't really it's a little bit blotchy right in there. I'll show you what I'll do with that, though. I think the last thing I used on here was probably StazOn, and I didn't clean it off. So that's why it didn't. It looks a little bit drier right there. Okay, let's use a little bit more pressure. All right, there we go. Change heights a little bit. You know, stamped it up there. I'll stamp it a little bit lower. Like this. Maybe 20% of the image, I don't know, something like that, or 30% of the height, okay? Right there. Kind of like a little bit higher on the, the perimeter like that. Okay, and let's just use the same tree right here. So I'm gonna ink that up again right here, and I'm gonna move this from up here. Now I'm going to stamp it right down here, right into that little blotchy area, so it just looks like another layered tree in there. Yeah, okay. Just like that. And let's see how this is looking right here. Okay. I'm trying to think if I want anything else in that lower section. If I have the stamp right here, I'll use it. If I don't, then we won't. I don't want to go look for it, but it's the leafless pine. Yeah, we have it right here. The interesting thing about Caroline is that there are no real fireworks being shot off around her, but watching this video and looking at this, it seems as though, um, it's creating the fireworks sound for her. Wouldn't that be cool, though? Or that'd be cool if there's one of those little cards that when you kind of open it up like this, it has that little microphone in there, with like a little recording in there, like a little kid's picture book or something like that on some of them. How far are the fireworks away from you, Caroline? Learned about hiding from watching your video. Yeah, you gotta just, if you don't like something, Jill, you know, I don't even think about that anymore. It's just kind of like all part of the process for me, as I'm doing these things. It's mostly the white pigment ink application and these pens right here. Now, it used to be just a white paint pen, because they didn't have the color ones before. But I just like the extra texturing in there anyway. So I'm not even really thinking about it when I'm doing like all kinds of coloring and all the preliminary stuff, because I just know that in the end I'm going to be doing a couple of the applications that just, you know, it kind of obscures things. And sometimes, okay, so I didn't used to think about that too very much, but I'm more conscious of it now. In mentioning that type of thing, when I'm doing these videos, I'll say, hey, look at, this area right now is looking really sloppy or something like that. It's muddled in terms of, my applications. Just because I just know that I'm going to be layering and whatever. It's like you're modeling light a little bit more. You're adding in a little bit of that misty type of stuff in the background, like up in here and right around in here. And all this little kind of like highlighting down here in the grass. It buries other types of things underneath it, like color blending and color, transitioning and all that type of thing. I wouldn't say that I'm uncareful about, doing those types of things, but, the way it ends up kind of looking, it's almost, it's not unimportant, but it's less important than what people would think. If you do those other things in there. Okay, so I added that tree right there. I didn't add enough of it. It's barely on there, so let's add another one. But yeah, all those other things, when we end up burying something, we're just kind of adding in extra layers. And, just in terms of theory, potentially it can come out, looking much richer as a result, or a little bit richer as a result anyways. So some of the best scenes that I've seen sometimes a lot of people, I always kind of preach, don't toss away your scenes that you're working on. Because a lot of times people say, oh my God, I was working on this one, I tossed it or whatever. And especially on the Facebook group. And I keep saying, hey, just, give it a shot. So sometimes people, instead of tossing things, they might kind of run into a roadblock and they don't know where to go from there. So sometimes they've kept those pieces. But when I see these pieces, by the way, there's that tree right down there. Some of those pieces that I've seen by people have been my favorite pieces by them. It's because they've kind of worked with it and they've layered more imagery into their scenes. And as a result, it's just, maybe there's like 3 extra layers that they wouldn't have otherwise added in there. It could be extra colors or shading or imagery or something like that, And it's, yeah. It's turned out really, really nice. Okay, I am looking for another image, I think, to put like right down in here. I'm gonna put this little kayak or something like that. Because that's the best view on the lake, I think, during this firework display. All right, let's see here. I have to kind of look at it like this, hold it up, because I need to see where the kind of the lighting is coming down in the reflection. I'll put that little, I think I'm going to put this little kayaker right here. Somewhere like right in here. I guess it would stand out anywhere in here. But see, I wouldn't want it up here because those trees reflecting down, at this angle at least, or most angles in here, would kind of, look at how that stretches those as you're opening this up. But like right around in here, I think would look pretty cool. Right here. Because it's a kayaker that's kind of moving from left to right anyway. Okay, let me see right here. All right, I got a little piece of dust right there or something. All right, now I'm hoping that I'm not going to blur this guy. But if you ever blur anything on this silver cardstock using the StazOning, just take some alcohol on a cotton ball and just wipe it right off. It'll come off. Not on all papers, but on a lot of them it will. As I was laying this down, I was thinking, oh my god, this ring finger was in the way. So I almost blurred it, I think. Or skewed it. I don't know about the scale, you know, it would probably be a little bit higher up, but I thought it was like in a good spotlit area like that. In reality, to have a bunch of people on the lake probably like, you know, boating around in here to check it out like that, but I'm just going to leave it like that. You can do some kind of like word stamp on here. That would be kind of interesting because it looked like it was floating on the water. Okay, so that is almost it. Let's do one more step right here. You're thinking, what the heck? But I want to add in kind of a little more explosive, brighter. It might be subtle too, but or a lighter highlight up there with the white, Dr. Martin's Bleed Proof White. Okay, and this will just give it'll add this random kind of more varied application of light up there, and I don't know. This moment here is supposed to be kind of explosive anyway. Maybe I'll even do some flicking like from, maybe that'll be it. Maybe I'll flick from like down here, kind of up that way. And I'll do it like here and here. It's kind of going out that way. Let's see how that works, or if it works at all. It might not. It'll splatter paint just fine, but I'm not sure if it'll look like it's emanating from that each kind of, you know, firework. Okay, so I'm really kind of squeezing out a lot of this extra paint out of my brush here because I don't want to get it like a blob of paint dripping down on here. It's not going to hurt anything, but, you know, again, I just rather not have to kind of undo something. All right, let me see if I can zoom in here for you a little bit. Okay, let's see. I can barely see anything. I guess it's because it's so light right in here. I don't know if you can see it in here. Here, let me just lay it flat. Maybe you can see it better this way. It's such a fine spray. Ah, there we go. I'm kind of hitting it down here a little bit more. And again, I can barely see it because this is so, it's like white on top of a very light area. I'm spraying it over the front of some of my imagery here too, just because it stands out a little bit more. I'm going to hit it right down here in this water too, I think. I mean, this area down here, I mean, it could just represent kind of, you know, there's just moisture or sediment in the air. And, you know, when you get something like this or with like lightning, everything illuminates, you know, in that moment. All right, now let me see if I can show you guys this if you see it up there. Anyways, it's all that kind of spray, like right back in here. You can see where I've kind of added those lines. They stood out a lot more because they were kind of isolated, but now I have this kind of this spray pattern in here too, which kind of unifies it a little bit. And then I don't know if you can see that in some little areas, like right in, you can see a little bit more over here. This is like a darker area, but we've taken some of this and put it in that front of that area. Or not area, but objects. All right, let's see. So get a half mile away. Okay, that's not too far. Oh, you have some going off in the neighborhood. That's fun. I didn't see that. Jill's using some 30-year-old. Okay, 30 years old. Whatever they used back then. Okay, yeah. Wait. So 30 years ago. I guess that, yeah, that was just standard. Was that standard photo paper? I'm trying to think now because that was pre-digital photography and like the home inkjet printer, huh? Yeah, I wonder what they were printing on back then. It was standard developer paper though. So that was not water-based printing. Yeah, I don't know what they used back then. That was like back in those days when I was like taking photo classes, so yeah, we weren't like just running that through like a printer. I don't think, was that? Huh. Yeah, I'm kind of curious to know what paper that is. But I'm guessing, yeah, I'm guessing it's a less porous paper than, well, the papers aren't porous these days, but they're just not that emulsion-based ones. Yeah, the StazOn would be the one to, yeah. It's probably the only one that you can use on there, right? Caroline has some sparklers. That's what we always used to get, too. We'd always end up with the sparklers in the end. We'd be going through all the other ones first. And then it's like, then we'd take the sparklers and kind of run around with them. Or what you do is you have them in your hand and you're kind of running around with them and stuff like that. And then right when it's about to go out, you kind of throw it up in the air. Hello, Vintage Scrap Girl. Happy 4th. We have some fireworks going on here for you. It was 109 here in Sacto, yeah. I was looking at the temperatures out this way, and it was like Palm Springs. I don't live near Palm Springs, but I spent a lot of time out in that area and up in like Joshua Tree. And just out of curiosity, I was looking at those two areas. And yeah, it was like 120, I think. Almost, like 118. I think tomorrow it's like 118 out in Palm Springs. But yeah, like Death Valley and the deserts and things like that. But hot everywhere else, so the 109 Sacramento doesn't surprise me too much. Oh, they canceled the fireworks shows because of that. Well, it's got to be, what's the temperature now for you, Christine? Is it like, is it still like 85? about it is if, you know, if those fireworks shows are going on at night, without that sunlight on you, though, even though it's really hot outside, it feels like a lot cooler, though. Just like, you know, you can be up in the snow sometimes in 30 degrees, and if it's like super bright sunlight, you know, it feels, you know, it feels a lot warmer. Better safe than sorry, though, I guess, huh? Okay, so see that little highlighting right back there on that cloud? We'll do the same for the areas around our sources of light in here, like this. So again, it's one of those things. I'm adding light into a colored background, so I'm starting in the light area and making it much easier type of process right here, because if I do something out there, it's going to really stand out, right? But you know, like a bunch of tappings with it right here, I don't know, it's like 20 taps and you can really barely see it, right? But it's that little bit of a haze like that. And then what you do is you just slowly move this into the darker areas or objects next to it. And that's, you know, it keeps the process really easy. And if you add too much, you just wipe it right off, okay? This is kind of like illuminating it in those areas with a little bit of soft light. I don't know, maybe it looks better to have like that crisp application, I'm not sure. But let's add some of it like down here in this water too, or let's add some right around in these trees where the little light area is. Like right down there. And remember this area right here where I added a lot more dots right there, and you kind of dissipate it or transition it out a little bit like that. Let's do some right here, right in these trees or shoreline like that. So in this instance like this, the application of this kind of white ink is kind of like enhancement, all right? In some instances, it's enhancement and obscuring of, you know, what went on in an earlier, whatever, step in the process, you know what I mean, where things might not have, you know, resulted in a nice, graceful looking, you know, application of media or something like that, or technique, you know. So you just put it behind like a wall of haze or cloud or something like that. It just pushes it back there in the distance a lot more like that. The biggest thing, you know, when people try this though, they're often they use like 10 times, you know, like too much ink, and it's going like blah blah blah. So just remember, you have to approach this one almost like you want to apply it like it's like powder. That's the sensibility here, like a dry powder or something like that. It's almost like you're applying like chalk over the surface. So you just want to get this to the right consistency, meaning, you know, you just don't have too much ink on it. And if you have a really super juicy pad, then just dab it off a few times and then just go right in there like that. Or if you do end up applying too much, then you just kind of wipe off a little bit, or you'd use your finger and dab it off a little bit, you know. I think that looks really good right in there. Remember where that trunk kind of stood out a little bit, but I wanted to add that white little trunk right up there like that. I just add a little bit of light to it right at the base like that to kind of make that trunk, tree trunk kind of, you know, blend in with the light a little bit more. right, now on this scene, when I'm done with it, I'll give it a spray sealing. The intensity is looking pretty good. If you're working with some different brands of inks, oftentimes this ink up here, in that type of layering, it'll dry dull looking, okay? But after you're done with it, go and outside and spray seal it, and it should bring back the intensity of more of a freshly stamped or inked scene, okay? I tend to think it's a little bit better to spray seal it, before it dries up a lot, though, because, it brings back the intensity, but sometimes I don't think it does quite as much as when, spraying it a little bit closer to when it's been kind of freshly stamped. I didn't used to think that, like, on a lot of my spray sealing videos, you can see the intensity come right back, in some scenes maybe that I haven't, worked on for like a month or something like that. It's been sitting around, and sometimes that intensity still, you're able to recover it, and it stays like that permanently. But I don't know, sometimes different brands of inks, it's almost like when you spray seal it, and while that spray sealant is wet, it looks really super deep, but then it dries and it gets a little bit duller looking, so I don't know, spray seal it. But the Marvies kind of retain the look of the intensity of kind of a freshly applied ink in there. See, like this area up here, it's kind of dry, but it's still pretty intense like that, so it's not too bad. Let's see. Oh, fires, because the embers. Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah, people would overheat if fires get started. Yeah. 109 in the high desert today. It was finally under 100, so there will be probably be fireworks. Yeah, the high deserts. I love the high deserts. I've spent so much time in the high deserts of California. I love Joshua Tree and everywhere out in the Mojave National Preserve, Death Valley. Anza Borrega's not really the high deserts, but yeah, love them. But yeah, 109 would be a little bit too much. I can go on short hikes in 100 though. Not far. Someone died on our local mountain like 1 week ago. There's this mountain near me called Black Mountain, and they were doing some sort of a fundraiser or something like that, where a bunch of people went hiking up here, and we were having a little bit of a heat wave about 2 weeks ago, or maybe it was like a week and a half ago. But it was 90, I think, by noon or something like that. But someone went up there on that group, and in those group types of settings, people weren't paying attention to who was turning around and who wasn't around, and it's almost like a cattle drive of all these people. But some lady, a bunch of people turned around midway. I guess it was getting too hot already in the morning, but she didn't come down, and they found her like the next day up there. But she phoned someone. This isn't the boondocks either. This is like, main area. Like across the street is the middle school, and yeah, she passed away from the heat. Yeah, glad you like it, Laura. Happy 4th there. So we have 3 fireworks going off in the distance like that. I don't know if it'd be, you know what I mean? I don't know if the national parks would be lighting off fireworks, but this is Stampscapes world in here, where you get those fireworks, nice safe fireworks going off in the up in the clouds like that, or whatever in the backdrop. But this might be my first fireworks scene in a reflection card format like that. It'd be cool if you had some kind of urban, kind of like skyline too. And I thought about doing something like that, or like a tropical type of thing, because a lot of times, so around San Diego, their main fireworks show, there's a bunch of them going around by the different cities, like in the area, and or high schools are just putting on some kind of fireworks shows. So you get it down at at the fairgrounds and stuff. But the main kind of city of San Diego one, they put it, fireworks show over there by the bay, and that's always kind of cool to see, like whatever alongside the ocean like that, because you get those people set up, and take photographs of it, and you get the fireworks reflecting in the water. So I wanted to do some sort of reflective type of situation with the whatever the fireworks going off up there. So I wanted to see what that looks like. Glad you like it, Trish. Let's see here. Some could be 40. Oh, the Kodak paper. Yeah. Yeah, give it a try. Give it a try with some. So, Jill, give it a try with some. If you have like an inkjet printer and, some photos, try it on, try the technique on just some standard, if you have it, photo paper. A lot of my photo paper is like 20 years old. Or 15, 20. It's like when digital cameras really started to explode, and everyone was getting like, inkjet printers to print out their photographs at home. So, but a lot of paper came free with the printer. So all those companies were kind of giving away printers and giving away like a free pack of paper, and it's because their consumables, meaning the inks, were the things that they were, that they intended on making the money off of. So sometimes the refill of ink, what is it? That it's either like 3 different colors, or sometimes all the colors came in one cartridge, and then there was black or something like that. Those things cost as much as the printer themselves. But so a lot of people have a lot of like I have so many packs of that glossy photo paper. But I just started using some of that, and that stuff works really well. Okay, Chula Vista is 69 right now. Okay, that's not too bad for us, huh, Trish? So Chula Vista is real close to me in San Diego, by the way, for those that don't know. Still recovering from heat stroke from Tuesday, and in the sun. It was 103. Oh my God. Yeah, that's too long out there, Megan. Unless you have like a hydration pack on. Yeah. Yeah, the Stampscapes drones. I love those drone shows. I can't believe some of those drone shows these days. Some of those drone shows to me are, like way more impressive than fireworks. I forgot what I was watching. Was it like some kind of thing in the Olympics, or God, I can't even remember. Or it might have been, I don't know, it was out in Las Vegas or something like that. I was shocked at those drone shows, though. Those light shows like that. Oh, I know what it was. I think it was opening night for like a Dodgers game or something like that, the baseball team. They had that drone show going on. I don't know. I need to watch some of those. I need to check out some of those that are on YouTube here. And what was that other thing I was going to check out? What was that? What were these types of trees again that we were talking about in this? Who mentioned that? Mark mentioned it. It was that Larch? Yeah, Larch Madness. Montana and Alberta because of those trees. Yeah, I'm going to check out Larch Madness, but I need to check out those drone shows again. I've only seen a couple of them, and I kind of forgot about it. Yeah, try it with your printer there, Jill. And if you're printing photos on your inkjet printer on photo paper, you can use just allow it to dry a little bit though, like overnight, ideally, and then just use your standard water-based dye inks on there. And then what I like to do on that type of paper, if you stamp out your imagery in dye-based inks, you can use, if you have them, like alcohol pens to color it, because the photo paper for inkjet printers, it's meant for water-based media, which your inkjet printer is. So it really grabs the ink really well and dries fast. And then the alcohol inks are really good to color it because the dye-based inks are grabbed into that emulsion coating so well that when you go into it with your alcohol inks and color it, the dye-based ink is so well set and anchored, and I don't know, it's like grabbed by that emulsion. It doesn't really blur them or anything like that. And then you can color your pieces with alcohol inks. You can blend on there with your alcohol inks. And then, you know, if you like doing stuff like this with that white, you know, pigment ink, you can do so. You know, you can use gel pens, acrylic paint pens on them, and it's a really great surface to, you know, like for multimedia. Or I mean, or you can just stamp your images right over it in dye-based inks, and you know, and that's that. Like, you know, if you have like a nice kind of sky photo or something like that, and if you have like silhouette stamps, it's really fun to do that type of thing. You can do it in a reflection card too if you want. Yeah, give that a try there. So so that's the thing about the stays on with those really old prints that aren't, you know, that might not, you know, the dye-based inks might not work on, but they should work just fine on the photo paper, you know, whatever modern photo paper these days. Glad you liked the live stream there, Cynthia. All right, folks, I want to wish everyone a happy 4th of July. Hope you had a great day. It feels like a weekend to me, though, doesn't it? It doesn't feel like it's a, you know, like a Friday tomorrow. But yeah, hope you had a great day, and hope you have a great rest of evening, whatever time it is for you. It might be really late for some of you, but yeah, thanks for checking the scene out. Hope you like the, you know, whatever the scenario here with the 3 lights. Maybe that'll be like the title of this one, the three lights over the 2 cabins. All right, good night, everyone.